Okay, so last time we used trig to find a side. Today we're going to use it to find an angle. Okay, so the word inverse, we're going to use inverse trigonometric functions. Inverse means like opposite. So instead of finding the side, finding the angle. Okay, so an inverse trigonometric function can be used to solve for a missing angle labeled as x when you are given two sides. Okay, so remember, like I told you, the part you're looking for will be labeled as your x. Okay, so you'll circle angle x. You're still going to label your sides. So adjacent, opposite, or hypotenuse. Based on which side measurements you were given. So you're going to have that third blank side, and you don't need to label that one because it kind of helps you just see which one makes more sense to choose. So choose which trig ratio to use. If I say so, which trig ratio or function is that? What? Sine. Well, if I say cosine. Because remember, these kind of help you. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine adjacent hypotenuse. And then the last one, tangent, which is tangent is opposite over adjacent. So use that. Try to remember that SOHCAHTOA. You do have to memorize them for next time you'll have a quiz test in a couple times. Okay? So do have to memorize those. And then we're going to set up our trig ratio using given measurements. The difference today, the main difference, is on the calculator, you have to do slightly different. And I'll show you in just a minute. So number 1 says find the angle, round answers to the nearest tenth of a degree. Okay, so circle the angle we're looking for, so the x. All right, now we label. What would I label 20? Adjacent, opposite, hypotenuse. Opposite. So remember, if you drew the line, it would hit it, or it's the one that the angle isn't touching. So opposite, what would 37 be labeled? Adjacent. Okay, and then here's where you just pick. So like I said, I don't like to label that other one because then I don't get confused on which two I have. So look at your poster up here. Opposite and adjacent. Which ratio is that? Tangent. Okay, so do we say that's what I have, opposite and adjacent. Okay, so I'm going to say, oops. And what's going to look different here is on your calculator. Let me make sure I got it. It is the one above tangent that says like tan -1, if you see that. You guys see that? It should be the second when you do the second function. So tan of x equals, which goes on top, opposite or adjacent? Opposite, so 20 over 37. So on your calculator, here's how you do it. You're going to click second button, so second, and then the one that says tan, and it should look like this. When you enter it, it should pop up like that. You guys see that? Make sure you can do that right now. So second button, tan. Make sure it pops up with the -1. Okay, now we just type it in like this. So instead of like multiplying or dividing here, you're just plugging in the ratio. Okay? So I'm just going to do 20. What's a line like though? Not technically dividing, but it's like division. Okay? So tangent divided to get the line, 27. Enter. You got what? All right, so 28.4. And that is degrees since it's an angle. Okay? So what questions do we have on that first one? Main difference, if you're looking for an angle, I know I have to use the inverse, the little -1. Okay? That's really the main thing to remember. The setup should be pretty much the same. All right, this one's a little funky. they already took the ratio. So watch close on this one because it's a weird one. They took the ratio and they made it into a decimal, which I always tell you not to do, but occasionally they'll give you that. So all you do is type in the decimal. So on your calculator, we're going to click second. And then which trig should I cosine? So second, cosine, and just type the decimal. Make sure you type all of it. Okay. Oh, and they didn't say x this time, they did say theta, but either way, really. All right. Did we get like a number that an angle could be? 38.5. Good. No, I was just showing for what you, yeah, you guys don't need to write this, sorry.
No, the little circle thing.
Oh, the theta, and if you wrote x, that's fine.
Oh, that's what's called.
Yeah. Just sometimes they use the theta for an angle instead of x. It's still like a variable. Right. So number 3. All right, so we're finding an angle or a side here. What? Angle, because it's in the corner and it has the degree sign. That's kind of how I know. All right. Alexis, what would we label 40?
Adjacent.
Does it touch it? Like if it's adjacent, it'll be one of these sides that makes up the angle like this. So if it doesn't touch it like that, it's your opposite. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah. Okay. All right. Brenna, what's 41? What would I label 41? What? Okay, I thought that was what you said, but maybe it wasn't. All right, so do I need to label the bottom? No, because they don't give you that one and you're not trying to find that one. I just think it makes it more confusing when you do. All right, so write on your paper which trig ratio that is, and then check with your neighbor. So sine, cosine, tangent, which is it? All right, Derek, what'd you think? Do we have adjacent? So we have opposite and hypotenuse. Which one is that? Yes. Okay. So how do I write my equation then? Sine of what? This is usually where we put the angle. So what do we put now? Yeah, we can put the x, and then we'll put the negative in the calculator. So if you want to put that here to help you remember. All right. Which goes on top, 40 or 41? 40 over 41. So in the calculator, that is second button should pop up like sine -1. Do I type the x? No. What do I need to write first? Does that matter? Yes. So whatever's on top has to be typed in first or it will change your answer. Division order matters. All right. Matt, let me know what you got. Anyone else get 77.3? Good, perfect. So I would say x is approximately 77.3 degrees. No, I will not count off if you have the degrees, or don't have the degrees. All right, so take like a minute and a half, and actually we'll do 2. Try 4 totally on your own. Okay, so quick reminder, if you're getting like 0 point something or 1 point something, your settings are probably off. It needs to be on degree, not radian, okay? So this one you should have labeled 8 adjacent, 11 hypotenuse. Okay, that is cosine. So I would do cosine -1, 8 divided by 11. Okay, now that we've done a few of these, this is all I really need to see on your paper, okay, and your labels. But all right, you don't have to like show me everything. So x was approximately what? Yes, good. Oops. Crazy. All right, so doing really similar here. This is like lesson 5.4 where we're combining kind of all the things. It's just now there might be an inverse in there as well. So I'm going to try to show you when to know what to use. All right, so you're going to use, so 2 words, use what if given 2 sides to find the third? Pythagorean theorem. So always if you're given 2 sides, you can still use Pythagorean theorem to find the third. Okay. Use inverse trig functions to find missing angles if you're only, I should have said if only given the 90, okay? Because if we have 2 angles, we could just add them and subtract, right? And then if I have 2 of them, say I found this was like 20, you don't need to do inverse again, just figure out with 180, like add and subtract from 180, okay? So they need to add up to 180 to find the third angle. So if I look at number 5, how many sides did they give us? 2. So we can do Pythagorean theorem to find the third. So side 13, what would that label be, like ABC? A, because it's across from it. 19 is C. We're missing B. So that's 13 squared plus B squared equals 19 squared. All right, Kyle, what do we do next to solve for B there? Good. So someone let me know what this comes out to. 19? 192. Okay, and obviously that side is not 192, right? That would be way too big. It's way bigger than the hypotenuse. So I always do that kind of check. So square root of that is what?
Oh, that's a...
Oop. Hold on. 13 point what?
13.9.
Okay. So we didn't have to bump it to 14, right? Okay. All right, so now I have all of my sides. So I can fill all those in. So A is 13, B is 13.9, C is 19. Okay? All right. Why can I not do sum of 180 now to find the angles? All right, I only have 1. I need at least 2 for that. So we have, if we only have the 90, only have 1, we have to do one of our inverse trig functions, okay? I will say, use the sides they gave you because we rounded this one, okay? So and plus just if in case there was a mistake, maybe you added those instead of subtracted them or something, okay? Because you could still get the angle if you got the side wrong. So use the 2 they gave us. So which angles do I need to find? B and A. It doesn't matter which you start with, okay? Just like yesterday we had 2 choices, or last time we had 2 choices on the trig function, same here. So I'm going to do B. If I do B, what would I label 13? Is it opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Adjacent. Oops. And 19 is hypotenuse. So which trig ratio is that? Sine, cosine, or tangent? Cosine. So, but what's the difference? So look here. Why would this be wrong? If I'm trying to find angle B, why is this wrong?
There's no negative 1.
There's no negative 1. That is the regular. That is to find a side. I need this negative 1 on here to get an angle, okay? So now I'm good to just type that in my calculator. Cosine negative 1. I'll write this how it should look in your calculator. Parentheses 13 over and divided by 19. Okay. So let's see what that gives you. Oops. Okay, Brendan, what'd you get? Did you do this one? Perfect. Okay, so that is angle B. Okay, so 46.8. We already know angle C, right? So that's 90, that's 46.8. How do we find the third now that we have two? Subtract them from 180, okay? So I'm going to do 180 minus 90 and minus the one we just found. So see what that is real quick. What is it? 43.2. Do you guys agree? Good. And it should be a decimal, right? Because I had the other decimal, so I have to have something to bump that up to a whole number for 180. All right, what questions do we have on that first one? Things we can think of. All right, so looking at 6, where would we get started? What would we do first? Find your side. Then Kayla said Pythagorean theorem, right? So take a, let's actually take like a minute and do as much as you can. Try to do Pythagorean theorem. Maybe you can fill in parts they give you. Remember, the sides are across from their angles. So like this is A, C, B. So if for Pythagorean theorem, you should have done 7 squared plus B squared equals 25 squared. All right. Subtract the 7 squared. Okay, what was that, McKenna? Do you want to have that written down, what it was? 576. Okay. All right. Then take the square root, because remember to check, that's way too big to be B. So what was the square root of 576? 24, and that was a whole number, correct? So that's 24. C is 25. A is 7. Okay. Couple questions on how do I know which angle to pick, okay? Basically, it doesn't matter. But you just need to circle either B or A. Like I said, does not matter. So watch close here. So if I circle A, what would I label? I want to use the 2 they gave me, so I don't really want to use the 24 just in case, okay? So what would I label 7 from A? Opposite. What about C? Hypotenuse. All right, so Corbin, if I have opposite and hypotenuse, which trig ratio is that? 9. So since I'm finding the angle, how do I do this differently? Sine -1 in your calculator. All right, Leo, which number would go first, 7 or 25? Yep, and then divide 25. So that's going to give me angle, angle A. Okay. I'm sorry, Grace. Yeah. Okay, give me just a second.
Okay.
All right, what did you guys get? 16.3. I did it as well. So that is here. C was 90. Now, how do I find B? Take them from 180. So minus 90 minus 16.3. 73.7. Okay, good. Okay, so let's do similar on 7. I'll give you like a couple minutes to try to get through what you can, and then I'll go through it with you. Really try to think about what your questions are here, okay? Okay, so we're going to check in here. Someone tell me tell me something that you knew. So Brendan, what was something you knew from that picture? C was 90. Okay. Dixon, tell me something else you knew. Like a side. A was what? Technically A is 5. See how it's across from there? Remember, you can also think the letter that's not included. So A is 5. B is what then? 12. So we needed to find C, or the hypotenuse. So we would do our 5 squared plus 12 squared equals C squared. And Grace told me that was 169. And then we don't forget to take the square root. This one did come out to a whole number. What did it come out to? 13. Now remember to check. C should be the biggest, right? Because it's the hypotenuse. So does that make sense? Yes, it's bigger than 12 and 5. All right, from there was kind of where we got stuck, which makes sense because that's the new stuff, okay? You can pick either angle. Which one can I not pick, though? Don't pick C because I already have it, okay? We want to do one we don't know. So I'll pick A. I think a lot of people pick that. So then you label, what is 5? What would I label 5? For trig, we label opposite side, adjacent side, or hypotenuse. Opposite. Remember, we want to use the 2 they gave us. So we have 13, but let's use 12 just in case, because some of them you'll have to round on. What would I label 12? Adjacent. So Nolan, if I have opposite and adjacent, which trig ratio is that? What? Tangent. So I can't do this. What do I have to do? -1. Parentheses. What would go first there? 5. Opposite divided by adjacent. Okay. What does that give us? Probably had to round, right? Oops. 23.6? 22. Okay. 22.6. And that was A. I just know, okay, that was A because that's the one I circled. Okay. Now, you could do another inverse function to find B, by the way, if you guys prefer. Most people just tend to prefer the subtracting from 180. Okay. So then if I subtract from 180, I want to type in 180 minus 90 minus 22.6 because I'm taking out the parts I know to find my third missing part. Okay, anyone already get that? Leo, what'd you get? 67.4? Do you guys agree? Yeah, good. So these ones are kind of like little puzzles, okay? All right, next class, I have a quiz. It looks just like this, basically. So when we come in next time, you'll do your quiz review for your bell work. So there's one question like today with the find everything, okay? And then there's a question like last time where we label the sides from what they give us and then just find the other 2. So these ones you're really not solving, you're just finding the other ratio. Okay, so we will go over that when you get to class next time.